Hey, everybody, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetzkys and Andy Kamenetzkys got a great show coming up for you. We're going to break down Kent Bazemore, arguably the most important free agent signing the Lakers made this offseason. We'll do that with Sam Esfandiari and Andy Liu of the Light Years podcast. Cover the Warriors and know Bazemore inside and out. We'll talk a little bit of Western Conference as well and figure out where exactly the Warriors fit into the whole thing. We'll do all of that next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You guys couldn't see that, but Andy was bobbing his head during the theme. It could end up his ringtone. It wouldn't surprise me. I want to let you know Wednesday is Locked On NBA. It's small market meets big market on the Locked On NBA podcast. Join Jake Madison of the Locked On Pelicans podcast and John Corrales of Locked On Celtics for a look at the NBA week from all angles. Follow Locked On NBA today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Guys, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. You know, I thought that small market versus big market thing was a dig at the Warriors, and I was like, we're going to start like that, but wow.
No. It's just a promotion. No, you guys are you're like a real city with like a real team, and you're not like some cute little franchise. You know, you guys are legit. It's like a real market with a real team.
We've got bridges here and stuff too. I mean, we got everything.
Iconic bridges, even.
You've got the entire Silicon Valley. Like, you guys now at this point, I think, look down on a podunk town like Los Angeles.
Oh, we are light years ahead.
You certainly are.
All right, so lots that we want to get into today. You know, we'll take a little. Andy and I have been debating kind of all summer, trying to figure out exactly how good the Warriors are in the Western Conference, and what's going to happen with them this year, because the range of possibilities seem damn near endless. But first, we've been doing all offseason since the Lakers have gone on their signing spree, scouting reports on some of the most critical players that they brought in. And honestly, I said it in the cold open, like, you can argue that Kent Bazemore is the most important free agent that they've signed because of what he is expected to do defensively, and the ability, hopefully, they think, to spread the floor. But that said, Andy and I love following you guys on Twitter. I've said this before. I think Warriors Twitter and Lakers Twitter have a lot in common, whether people like that or not. And nobody,
both bases hate the four of us. There's that.
There is that. There was nobody following you guys last year on Twitter and having you on our shows and stuff. Nobody seemed to get Warriors fans angrier than Kent Bazemore. Like, you'd have thought he was just the worst person, worst player, kicking puppies, you know, all that stuff. Like, why? Because statistically, he wasn't bad, and Lakers fans are kind of excited to have him. Are we missing the point?
Well, let's start with this. Kent Bazemore's story is incredible as a basketball player. He actually started with the Warriors, is actually Steph's best friend. Steph got him into Under Armour, or was it vice versa? Something or the other. Probably Steph that got him in. And then he got 80
I find it
plus.
very difficult to believe that Kent Bazemore.
Yeah, I was going to say. Flip that back. Let's flip that back. Gets 80 plus million with the Hawks, you know, just from a summer league guy. And then he makes his return back to the Warriors as a vetman guy. So all in all, you'd like to think that this is a feel-good story.
I have a strong sense of a butt coming here. Like, that was a long lead up for a very polite lead up for a butt.
I was trying to give a little. I just think he was.
Good part was the 80 million.
Yeah,
felt good to him.
Good for him. Good for him. I mean, sheesh. Could take all the vet mins that he wants, but the Warriors, as a Warriors fan, you're used to watching some of the smartest players ever play basketball. Andre Iguodala, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, etc. down the line. All of a sudden, you're stuck watching Kent Bazemore. I think that's what happened. It's just you watch this guy, and he makes so many plays, offensively and defensively, that make you just want to – I don't know, Sam, help me out. That make you just want to do something to yourself that is just – it was very frustrating because of the low IQ play. I think let's just start there.
I was going to say, I actually thought Warrior fans were way too hard on him, and I've said this all year. I think in the aggregate, he was objectively a positive player for them and one of their 5 best players, which speaks more to the roster than anything. But he is good for one play a quarter that is just like, why? Like, there was the best example I can think of is in the play-in game, Steph Curry passes it to him and cuts to the corner. And it's one of those give and goes, the patented Steph relocate. It's wide open. Instead, Kent Bazemore dribbles into a double team and then finds a way to take 4 to 5 more dribbles to take a fadeaway. And you're watching Steph, and I don't know if this is a podcast, so people can't see it. Steph is waving his hands like a madman that I'm wide open. It's those type of plays that I think drove Warrior fans insane, where it's like in the aggregate, it's one possession. And in the, over the course of the game, he did positive things, but it's like those bad possessions just are seared in your mind.
He will look off LeBron in transition for a dunk to miss a layup against 2 defenders. Like, he will do that. But he also shot like 39% from 3. Like, that's the, if you just 40%, like if you just look at his, if you just look at the numbers, you're sitting there, you're like, this is a sweet signing. And I think he is. Like, it's just, if the Lakers have to play him 28 minutes a game, which I don't think, guys, I don't think that they will. Like,
okay, I actually think they will. And this is this is when you were saying before, like if he's one of your 5 most important players, it says something about the roster. He actually could be one of the 5 most important players. I mean, you have to take this contextually with the idea of when you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, whoever else is on that team, the drop-off between those 3 and everybody else talent-wise, especially in a salary-capped league, is going to be pretty pronounced. So being one of the top 5 can be a relative framing. You know what I mean? Like, it's all relative to everyone else on the roster. But Kent Bazemore theoretically could be the best two-way role player on this team. Like, and that could make him very important.
I think if nothing else, they want him to be able to play.
He is there are 6 guys on this team. Brian and I were just talking about this recently that I think have definitive roles of around 25-ish minutes, give or take. It's the 3 I just named, Talen Horton-Tucker, who certainly is getting paid like somebody that they believe in. And I do think he's shown a lot of potential there. Kendrick Nunn and Kent Bazemore. Like, those are the 6 guys that I think definitively are going to be playing a lot. Everybody else, I think it's going to be fluid. But the Lakers actually are depending on him to, not necessarily be a standout, Andy, on either side of the ball. But I do think they are counting on him to having some type of impact.
They need shooters, right? And I think that's to your point. It's Kendrick Nunn is kind of a chucker more than a shooter. And Kent Bazemore, anytime he got an open shot, I mean, remember, like, anytime Kent had an open shot, he made it. Like, the guy was money, especially from the corners. He was, and if you're talking about the one guy in the NBA that you're going to pick to get a guy open or to find a guy open, it's LeBron James.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so I think in that aspect, it's just the Warriors had him making decisions. So if you're a Laker fan and you're thinking how to minimize Kent Bazemore, just don't have him make decisions. Guess what? Ball's in LeBron and Russ's hands all game long, 48, 49 minutes a game.
The one thing I worry about with him,
this is what, to Andy's point, I think that's what they did when LeBron came with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, was they removed a lot of the things. Like, if you saw KCP the year before, like, it was like, get the ball and go score. Like, the team was awful. Like, it's like they needed him to do stuff, and it didn't look great. When LeBron got there, they tailored KCP's role to emphasize all the stuff he was good at and removed a lot of the things he wasn't, which, like you were saying, Andy, about Bazemore, some of that was just decision-making. So I wonder if they think they can kind of use Bazemore in the same way and remake him, or, utilize him the same way as KCP. Could that work?
Maybe. He's a little more frenetic than KCP, is just my general feeling about him. Like, you can tell him not to rip the rebound and go, but he's going to do it. So it's one of those things where, he hasn't been glared at by LeBron and Russell Westbrook, who, that might get him to just pass the ball and cut off ball. But in general, that's not been who he's been on other teams. And you can take it back farther than the Warriors. You can take it to Atlanta, who played kind of a similar system to the Warriors where they try to have the ball hopping around. So I wonder, but on the most basic level, he's going to outperform his contract for the Lakers. Like, they got him for a veteran minimum. He's going to defend. He's also going to commit fouls at times where you're just like, why? You know? Like, but the Kent Bazemore experience involves a lot of why. Like, you always ask yourself why. But other than that, like, I mean, he is objectively better than a veteran minimum player. And it's just a question of, like, what you guys want from him, right? Like, are you expecting him to overexceed it, or are you going to be okay with the fact that, you know, you're going to get kind of this up and down guy?
I think it's a great way of framing it, because, you know, some of those numbers from last year are kind of eye-popping in terms of his efficiency from three-point range, in terms of his efficiency from the floor generally. His on-off numbers and how they translate, like, you know, go to cleaning the glass, are kind of jump off the page as well. So those expectations are really important. Andy and I want to ask you guys about some specific numbers and the sustainability of them, moving from the context of Golden State to the context of the Lakers, AD, Russell Westbrook, LeBron. We'll do all that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Sweat Block. There are a few things in life that are just not fun to talk about. And one of them is excessive sweating. Like when you are just sweating through all of your clothes for no particular reason. It's like 70 degrees outside, it's air conditioned inside. And that's embarrassing. I don't want to have to worry about that. So that's why I use Sweat Block antiperspirant wipes. They are stronger, more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You just apply it at night before bedtime. The next morning you wake up, you wash, you pig. Don't forget about doing that. Then go about your day without having to worry about sweat. Use it once or twice a week. Stay dry the entire time. Guaranteed or your money back. No more pit stains. No more picking out shirts or your entire wardrobe based on what hides the sweat better. Andy, Sam, hoping things open up. You guys might be face to face with Steve Kerr or the Warriors brass. You don't want to be sweating in front of those guys.
You got to ask
it's some immediate perspiration.
Right. Green, are you kidding? You look like Robert Hayes in Airplane at that point.
Yeah, some of the things you guys have said, you don't want to end up sweating in front of them, you know, lose your credibility. And
mid-fourth quarter Patrick Ewing.
Exactly. I'll put it to you guys another way. If you know of another sweat solution that's doctor created, doctor recommended, featured on Rachel Ray's show, tested by firefighters, I'm listening. But until then, check out Sweatblock. Get it today. 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code Locked On, or at Amazon and CVS.
It wasn't a rhetorical question, by the way. If you know anything like the firefighter testing or whatever, let us know, because we don't think it's possible. Let me ask you this, guys. If this sounds at all familiar, you've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone. You've got your neighbors, best friends log in like you're poaching, you're stealing, you're a thief. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV on demand and on-demand favorites together like nothing before, so you can watch your favorite sports, your favorite movies, and your shows all in one place. Your stories, as you know, your grandmother might call them. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another piece of another device ever again. The best part, no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter, get rid of the confusion, and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more about it at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device is required. Content does vary by package. Do you guys know anybody who calls it their TV their stories? Wow, my wife's grandma did that.
Well, my grandma didn't speak English, so I don't even know what. I don't even know. I don't even know what she knows.
The transition says yes.
Yeah. All right. So last year, Kent Bazemore shot a career high 45% from the field. He shot a career high 41% from three-point range. The Lakers need him defensively, but for him to be able to play defensively, he's got to be able to space the floor. So they are absolutely banking on at least something similar to what he did, 41% last year, 38% from the year before in Sacramento. What do you think happened last year that allowed him to be efficient? And thinking about going from the Warriors to the Lakers, how likely do you think that is to continue?
I'm gonna go full Steve Kerr on you guys. I think the fact that the Warriors moved the ball and he touched it far more than he should have probably helped him gain some rhythm with his shooting. Like, I'm not convinced Kent Bazemore is the type of guy who can go 3-4 minutes, 10 possessions up and down the floor without touching the ball and then just sticking a shot. Like, like the way like someone like a Kyle Korver or JJ Redick or someone like that. Like, I'm not convinced he's that type of player. Like, I think he's probably going to be a little more streaky for the Lakers. Your KCP analogy is actually probably a best case for him. And I think KCP is a really good role player and kind of was somewhat underrated for the Lakers over his time there. Like, he could defend, he could hit shots. That's probably your best case with Kent Bazemore, where it's like he'll hit 4 in a row or he'll miss 10 in a row, that type of thing.
Could he do higher volume, Andy? Because he only took like 2.5 a game. And in theory, in this offense, he could be asked to shoot. I mean, Andy, both Andys, would you could be 3 or 4, sometimes 5 or 6.
I mean, look, the Lakers, part of the issue they had last year, beyond the fact that they didn't have enough good 3-point shooting, they sometimes had guys reluctant to take the shots, period. Like, they need guys who are going to be willing to put up shots, particularly when they're open. But even
now, what you got, Westbrook?
Well, I mean,
we're sort of trying to find ways for him not to take threes. But Andy L, would you, if that bumps up to 3 or 4 a night of solid quality based on who's passing him the ball, and you cover LeBron down low or you cover Kent Bazemore 3, do you think he could handle 3 or 4 a game, 5 a game, and still shoot high 30s?
I think so. I think so, absolutely. The shot is good. The stroke is actually really. He's not a fake shooter, right? Like, it's not like he's out there trying to figure out like PJ Tucker. Although PJ Tucker is a good 3-point shooter, but it's like those type of guys where you're like, I don't know, like whether that's going in or not. It feels like he's just kind of picked that up through his career. Kent Bazemore can actually shoot. To answer the question that Sam did earlier too, it's I believe. I mean, Lakers fans are gonna love this. Steph Curry. Like, Steph Curry just opens the floor up for literally every single person in the existence of basketball, and that helped Kent Bazemore a lot. But yeah, if he shoots more than what he did, I actually wish he shot more threes. In my opinion, he spent way too much time doing the one dribble pull up. Like, that's his thing. Like Sam talked about rhythm. He loves the one dribble. He loves putting his head down and driving to the rim. Both of those things I'm out on. But if he is told to shoot more threes, I would prefer it. Also, incredible cutter. Like, he's playing at 100% at all times, and that's what he's really good at.
Extremely important with this team. I mean, it's important, I think, actually, for Russell Westbrook, if you're looking things a little more granular, like something for him to be doing more often. But these guys are going to have to occupy defenses in a lot of different ways, because there's going to be periods where I think defenses are going to be daring anybody else to hit shots. But if guys like Bazemore can just occupy them through motion, that's going to help a lot too. So it's good to know that he's really willing.
You don't need a lot of space for LeBron James or Russell Westbrook to find you. If you have a hair of a crack of a lane somewhere, and you get the ball and you got a layup. I mean, if you move.
Yep. And one last point to it, he will bring energy every game. And for the Lakers are going to be best in transition.
ARP team for ARP.
I was just going to be like, every player on the Lakers loves to play in transition.
Yeah.
Having a guy who's going to force the issue in that way, like, they're going to be a nightmare if Bazemore's the guy who gets the energy flowing, and the next thing you know, Russ is picking off some passes. Next thing, they're running up and down the floor. They could be the type of team who, it's ugly for half a game because the energy is down and they're playing half-court basketball. And the next thing you know, they turn it up, and it's all because Bazemore decided to, kind of pick up someone in half court, get into them, get a little in their jersey in that way. And I could see that being very useful for the Lakers too.
Okay, I'm glad actually you brought that up, because defensively, there's a lot, I think, being hoped for from Bazemore. Again, like when I was talking about earlier about him being, I think, potentially the most important two-way role player on this team, I know that they are counting on him to pick up some defensive slack that on paper this team lost, with losing KCP, losing Alex Caruso, losing Kuzma. What was Bazemore like defensively in terms of, I guess, quality of the assignments that he would pick up, strengths, weaknesses, that sort of stuff? Andy, you're making a face.
Yeah, well, okay. I guess I'll go first. In theory, he's
set
a really
it up
good
by
defender.
saying how remarkable his career was, though. Let's remind people.
let's run that
he's
back.
He's a fantastic.
We want to remind everybody to feel good again about his $80 million.
He is a great locker room guy. Tell you that.
Yeah, he was with the Lakers
for about an hour.
Traded for Steve Blake, who went to you guys.
I love the Steve Blake era. He was huge for the Warriors. Helped them win an April game versus Portland in 2012.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah. Look, guys, he's not Caruso. He's not Caruso. Caruso is instincts are off the charts. I mean, he's just a guy that I frankly don't know why he's gone, but incredible. Yeah, right. Incredible feels guy, great help defender. I'm talking about Caruso. With Bazemore, he's more of a I think of him similar to Andrew Wiggins, where it's like you put him on a guy. You put him on a guy, you tell him that's his assignment. If you ask him to do anything outside that is even like anything like off-ball stuff, he's lost. But if you stick him on a guy, you tell him to pepper him the whole game, just kind of play up on him, full court, all that type of stuff, that type of energy that Sam was talking about, he's going to be great. He's going to be awesome. He is going to make some dumb fouls, but I mean that's what comes with being a great energizer guy.
Well, it also comes with being on a guy a lot. I think if like your primary assignment is to be on ball as a defender, there's going to be times where you just end up making bad fouls because it's hard. Like it's really hard to do that.
Yeah. He's going to get primary. You don't want Russ on those guys. You'd like to avoid too much of LeBron doing that, and AD's not going to run around with twos all day. So. Like he's going to get that assignment. But it's interesting, Sam, because, the Lakers traded away, not that they were as switchy a team as some others around the league, but they traded away a lot of their switchability when they let KCP go, when they let Kuzma go, losing Caruso. And so they're going to have to do it differently this year and figure out how to integrate a bunch of guys defensively into a scheme. From Andy's perspective, it seems like he doesn't consider Kent Bazemore a scheme sort of.
I would say I wanted to actually bring this point up. I think a lot of Bazemore's effectiveness on defense will come down to Anthony Davis. If Anthony Davis is fully engaged the way he was in 1920 when the Lakers won the title, he makes it a lot easier on guards. Like Kent Bazemore can be counted on to pressure the ball and kind of get into someone and be a nuisance the way that KCP and Caruso and those guys did during the Lakers title year.
Avery Bradley, who didn't play the bubble, so people don't talk about him, was famous.
Perfect example. But a lot of that was because Anthony Davis, I mean, he had a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season as the help defense behind those guys. He really allowed those guys to kind of be a little more aggressive on the perimeter than, let's just say, average perimeter defenders can be when they don't have Anthony Davis behind them, right? I think in that capacity, Bazemore is like the perfect, foot soldier to kind of carry out the scheme and do everything you want when you have guys with not just like the IQ, but like the capability of Anthony Davis and LeBron behind him. Now, if you get into a scheme where Anthony Davis is kind of trying to preserve himself and not trying to be Defensive Player of the Year, and you're asking Kent Bazemore to think the game more and make decisions where he's switching on to guys and has to be kind of, the perimeter stopper, that's where he gets into gambling and making mistakes and things might go awry. But from a vision standpoint, yeah, he can give you what KCP gave you for a fraction of the cost, right?
Speaking of switchability with Bazemore, I wanted to ask about this before we possibly go to break. But this team doesn't really have a true small forward, like a designated true three. LeBron can be whatever you want him to be, but there's going to be times where he needs to be something else. And they don't really have like a wing like that, which would mean at times Bazemore would have to switch on to
sort of,
but you want to talk about a guy with some defensive questions. THD has way more than Bazemore. Like I can promise you. I mean, whatever worries you have about Bazemore losing assignments off ball, THT is. Sure. I'm willing to bet further along in that capacity.
Worse in every regard.
How does Bazemore would be undersized against most threes? How does he typically do if he's given upsize? Because that's something the Lakers used to deal with also with KCP at times with Danny Green.
With Danny Green, sure.
Sam and I are sitting here waiting to.
I was waiting to see if you were going to take it. I was going to say, I actually never think size is an issue with him. It's more multiple decisions. Like I love Bazemore when he's guarding someone, and it does not matter if they're Kawhi Leonard, although Kawhi's probably going to score, or guarding a point guard. Like Kent Bazemore has over a 7-foot wingspan.
He's incredible length. Incredible.
Yeah, he has, and he is a legitimate 6'5". Like so, he plays bigger than his height. Like that's not the issue. The issue is always when you're asking him to do more than one simple assignment.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3 is not really a problem. 4 is obviously he's not a 4.
That's fair. That's fair.
So 1, 2, 3, I think I wouldn't be so much worried about that. It's where, and I harp on this a lot because I think to Sam's point, yeah, the Warriors had Draymond Green, but beyond that, they didn't really have any bigs out there. Like Looney, sort of, but they don't have any rim protectors. Really, I mean, even you look at the Lakers, I mean, they still got big guys that have some semblance of IQ defensively. The Warriors had a 19-year-old James Wiseman. Like that made things really hard for someone like Bazemore, where not only you got to guard him at the high level at the 3-point line, you also kind of have to stop him at the rim, right? And so that becomes difficult. But yeah, from a switchability perspective, I think he'd be fine with LeBron and Russ. I don't know, but that's another
not
podcast.
About Bazemore. That's a Russ thing.
That's another podcast. Right. Yeah,
and we'll see. Like Russ, a lot of it with Russ is just the question of like, does he put in sort of the attention, and that's one of the going to be one of the great themes. I mean, ultimately, it sounds like that Sam is quite wistful and misses Kent Bazemore already.
I do.
And Andy, you helped pack his apartment and move him down to LA.
Yeah. Him and KD, both. Got it.
Well, I mean, you are renowned for kicking dudes out of the Bay, Andy. Like, I mean, Sam's got a rep too, but I don't think anybody matches up to Andy along those lines.
Look, man, some guys are enjoyable to watch that can kick to the curb, man.
Some guys aren't built for this, like me, the guy watching it all.
If Bazemore gave me a couple mil off that $80 million contract, we can talk. But it's tough. No, but
I think it was only about 65. Let's not make this bigger than it was. He's only made $77 million over the course of his career. All right, so Andy and I do want to ask you guys a little bit about the Warriors and just talk a little bit about the Western Conference, just because it's been it's kind of a crazy offseason. And we, for one, can't figure out how good the Warriors are going to be. So we'll start there, look at the rest of the West. We'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bars ever. Bars covered in 100% chocolate. They are soft. They are easy to chew. I'm not going to call out the ones that you can't chew, but they're deadbeats and they know who they are. But Built Bars, they are healthy. They're great for health-conscious people, whether you're trying to lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. They're low calorie, they're low sugar, they're high protein, high fiber, great for keto diets, and they taste awesome like ever. You got the 12 original flavors like raspberry, coconut almond, salted caramel, banana bread, new flavors like cherry barcia, lemon almond cheesecake, cookies and cream. They're perfect for someone like me who just likes really cool, different, unique flavor combinations. You never feel bored like you're eating the same thing over and over with Built Bar. So go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your first order. Again, the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
Locked on Lakers also brought to you by BetOnline.ag. It's that time of year, guys. Are you getting into football? I got a fantasy football draft on Wednesday evening. I'm very excited about. Teams are back on the gridiron. Football's starting, and BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest. Now
they call that a 1/160th of a Bazemore.
That's right. Kent Bazemore farts that kind of money. So head over to the website, use your mobile device to sign up today, receive your 100% welcome bonus, 100%. And be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo. You make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports. Your favorite casino games are there too, so don't wait. Take advantage of all the great offers for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right. Simple question that I'm sure you guys can answer succinctly and in very, don't have to unpack anything. Are the Warriors good this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe.
How good?
Oh, come on. Jeez. I knew he would do that. I knew he would do that.
I'm trying to give these guys a 2-hour pod. They've been so gracious to us. Let's unpack this.
Our boss doesn't like that. You don't have to.
I think I'm always a homer. People think I hate the Warriors, but I'm always a homer. I think outside of the Lakers, there's no team
you love the Warriors. You just hate all the people who play for them.
Yeah, just every single guy except for Steph. There's that one guy I do love. There's no team that screams to me in the Western Conference that's definitively better than the Warriors if I look at it, not right now, but in April or whenever the playoffs start. Who knows when they start? There's no team that you can tell me is going to be 100% better than the Warriors. Now, if AD, LeBron healthy, yeah, most likely 99%, they're probably going to be better. But out of everyone else, you go down the list. Portland's a mess. Denver doesn't have Jamal. Kawhi's not playing for LA. The Suns are a fraud. We can go right down the list. I don't see a team that's really – you can make the case that the Warriors are better than those guys when the playoffs come around is my point.
Well, a lot of that, Sam, obviously depends on Klay Thompson's health this season, where he's at, what he's going to look like coming off consecutive pretty significant injuries. What have you heard about where he is right now, and sort of what of your, I guess, best combination of optimistic / realistic expectations for Klay? Because that to me feels like the biggest X factor for the entire season.
So, you guys saw him at the Giants-Dodgers game Sunday. He's somehow morphed into an incognito sailor and a Ninja Turtle at the same time. I can't tell. You see what I'm saying. But anyway,
for a guy that doesn't seem like a natural extrovert, Klay's just the best. Klay is he's the best.
He really is. I think he's now reached the meta layer where he's aware of how people think he's funny and he's leaning into it, and it's just it brings everyone joy.
Is he the most liked high profile player in the NBA? Nobody dislikes Klay Thompson.
No, I've never met a person who's who I fucking hate. Klay Thompson. Okay. Sorry, you know that out.
I can't believe you were the one to do that. Wow.
I'm sorry.
We might just keep that. We might just
so happy.
But the point stands. I've never met a person who just has a visceral hatred of Klay Thompson. He's
the Ted Lasso of the NBA.
Yeah,
he's the one guy we can all agree on.
Yeah. Sorry. No. I was just gonna say, women love him, players love him, fans love him, coaches love him. Coaches love Klay Thompson.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's
his peers love him.
Yeah.
Why? So Andy and I have this debate all the time. It's I am closer to thinking the Warriors are going to be, if Klay comes back and is healthy, at least over the second half of the season, you could certainly argue that they have as good of a chance to be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the West as anyone. I think they are a step behind the Lakers. I would put them behind Phoenix, who I don't consider a fraud. It was bold. But they did make the Western Conference Finals last year. They didn't
dare to be bold.
But
no, they made the actual finals.
That's true. That's even better. You're right.
I forgot about that. They choked up 2-0.
They didn't choke. But the point being, I look at it and you're okay, Klay's healthy. They come back. Draymond is not the offensive player that he is, but he's still pretty useful there and is still a great defender. Steph is Steph. And if one of the rookies or second-year guys pop Jordan a little bit and Otto Porter stays healthy, and that's a pretty good team. Yeah. I like that team.
So let me make the case for you for why the Warriors will be good. And I say this after I was the one who's a cynic 2 minutes ago. So they finished the year 15-5. 90% of them being good down the stretch. I'm not saying they're going to – that's a 60-win clip. I'm not saying they're going to do that. 90% of that was removing Kelly Oubre, James Wiseman, and leaning into what they're actually good at, which is just shoot the ball or move it until Steph gets open, right? You guys watched the playing game. they were outmanned, and like there was a finite level of talent there. But like inevitably, if your philosophy is just pass until Steph gets open, you're going to have a puncher's chance.
There is a level of don't overthink this.
Yeah, exactly. So they leaned into it a little bit, and they signed players I would define as, like Kelly Oubre is more talented than Otto Porter.
An actual skill.
But like Otto Porter will probably pass Steph the ball instead of shooting a contested jumper. Like those are the type of like less is more moves.
Oubre has a Bazemorean streak to it, if you will.
Way worse. Yeah. Yes, way worse. But it's true. Like the Warriors, Sam, that's the point. It's the Warriors overcorrected, and maybe not overcorrected. They corrected and said, "Hey, we're gonna go with shooting and skill over pure athleticism and quote unquote talent." And that's why they got guys.
Kelly Oubre, he is, wildly handsome.
We talked about this. I bet deja vu. We talked about this a year ago.
Because he's just stunning. So that should count for something.
It counted for. I don't know what it counted for.
It certainly bought him. It bought him more time before the fans got mad. They're like, "Yeah, he's shooting 28%, but look at the eyes, man. Look at the eyes."
He had some great kisses, great celebrations.
I will miss just the extra plays on the draws a charge and does push-ups. It's a 4-6 game with 10 minutes left in the first quarter. Incredible. Just like it is incredible. Soft spot. Doing the first down marker anytime you like that sort of stuff was just. I will miss it because it was hilarious. But in terms of basketball, they probably got better.
I was in on Oubre. I had a soft spot. The guy played hard, man. He played hard. He cared. He just put in the wrong position.
That was like Nick Young, several years ago with the Lakers. He was entertaining and he had, the swaggy persona. But the dirty little secret about Nick Young is that he actually gave a shit. Nick Young really cares. He's sneaky competitive, and you can't tell because of all the Nick Young persona. There was nobody in that locker room who would get more mad about a loss than him, by a pretty wide margin.
Granted, he would often contribute to them in significant ways. It was a 23-win team. Who cares? He wasn't the only problem.
Guys, Nick Young made one of the biggest shots in the Warriors 17-18.
Nick Young was it gets forgotten in history, but he kind of hit some important shots in their game 7
Houston. Nick Young.
The man has a ring.
You're in the wrong place if you're
Warriors legend.
IDP standard here. So so with that in mind, would you guys agree that if everyone stays healthy, the Lakers are the best team in the West in theory?
Yes. Yes, they have the most top to bottom. Yes.
Who is next? Who else do you like in this conference? The AD gets hurt or all of a sudden there's some vulnerability. What's my aim?
The Lakers have the same issues they had last year with injuries, right?
Sure,
that type of situation. I would probably go Denver. I'm gonna take the Warriors. I'm gonna take the Warriors out of this equation because, as cynical as I am, if you give me the Warriors core with Clay actually healthy in the playoffs, I think they're dangerous against anyone. But I'm going to, not entertain that possibility. I'm going Denver because
you're going to entertain Jamal coming off an ACL though.
It's just one. He's not coming off 2 back-to-back injuries, and they also don't need him to be their second best player. They need him to just be good. I think Michael Porter Jr. is an all-star this year. I think he's
going to have the opportunity to be one. That's for sure.
That is true.
The Aaron Gordon thing is sort of an interesting part of it.
Yeah, too. Just because he's an interesting character off the court doesn't mean he can't play. I'm a big fan of this game. So I'm going to go with Denver as the team I think has the highest upside in the West outside of the Warriors.
All right. Andy, say Sacramento, you coward.
Well, since I'm not allowed to say the Warriors, which I would go with. If I can't say them, and Brian's going to love this, the Suns. I mean, the Suns. I mean, after what I just said about them. But, I mean, in all honesty, they are the team where DeAndre Ayton, he's only going to keep getting better. DeAndre Ayton, who Warriors fans seem to think that James Wiseman plays like. But, like, DeAndre Ayton, great hands, good defender, great touch. I mean, if he develops a shoot like a 12-footer or like maybe a 3-point shot, I mean, it's awesome. Great role player. Chris Paul, if he stays healthy again, like that's at least a very, very, very good regular season.
I was going to say the reason I think Phoenix, who knows what would have happened if they had competed against a slate of teams with more guys available. I mean, could they have lost some of those series? Sure. The flip side is they were pretty good the entire year.
Pretty
good. I just think they're a really well-constructed team. Like, they don't have the super upside, I think, of maybe the Lakers at their absolute peak, or like the way Steph can go nuclear. But what they are, though, is pretty solid top to bottom, and you don't look at them there's no glaring weakness with them. They're just pretty. They're a team that makes sense.
You almost just sort of wonder, like, does CP3 have another one of those super healthy seasons left in him? Like, that's basically I see them like Milwaukee. They are right. Brooklyn, the obvious favorite in the East. But if something weird happens, like Milwaukee,
does CP3 run into a playoff run where they lose the best player on every team he plays against on the way to the finals? So,
it helps. But look, I mean, Lakers fans don't like talking about this. I mean, things sort of opened up in 2019, 2020 during the bubble for Portland. Dame gets hurt. And in the second round, they got the Rockets, which would have been a phenomenal matchup anyway. And then they had injury problems. And then who they play in the conference?
Daniel
finals?
House had his little adventure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Denver, you got an exhausted Denver team in the West Finals. I mean, the Warriors went through the same thing. It happens to everyone. Yeah.
I mean, this is how it works. Like, that is normal. So, I'm not adding an asterisk next to anything. But
still counts the same.
Sort of thing. Yes.
Still counts the same. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, no, but those are I'm really saddened by the Kawhi thing and the Jamal Murray thing, because God, if those guys were healthy, the Western Conference, which is good, would be bonkers. And but we are being robbed a little bit of stuff. So we'll see.
I do think a lot of the one thing I'm very confused about, and maybe you can help this before we head out, is that I do feel like there are people that aren't more nationally based that feel like the Warriors are going to be a lot better than what Warriors fans may think that they are going to be. So I think that's a part where I'm a little bit confused, where people are like, "We think the Warriors are going to be in a great spot to be a contender," and I think a lot of Warriors fans they don't really get that much better. They didn't really pick anyone up. Like, they're still a playing team, and I think that disconnect is a lot.
They don't have Kent Bazemore to kick around anymore. That's what they're upset about.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just the uncertainty about Clay. I think you just have to see when he comes back, what he looks like.
I think he should wear that hat though during games. They should allow him to do that.
Just pay the fine each game.
Yeah, just wear the hat. With a headband. Put a headband around it so it stays on, and then you're good to go.
Christmas, guys. Sam
Esfandiari. It is always a great time to have you guys on. I have a sneaking suspicion there will be many more opportunities to have conversations.
We appreciate, by the way, Andy putting on the purple and gold lighting behind him. This is not a concession that he would do for every show, much less a show that props up this team. So, yeah, that's true. It is the offseason. But we appreciate that on top of the generosity of your time.
Polarizing and troubling times that we can find common ground through Andy's smart home lamp coloring is to me a sign that things really can get better. Make sure you check out the Light Years podcast. These guys are fantastic. And I think understand the pulse of the Warriors fan as well as anybody could possibly do that. And I don't even know if that's healthy for you, but you do. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll talk to you guys soon.
We'll see you in the finals.
Appreciate it,
guys.
Whoa!